Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to our live. I'm Colleen Suchecki.
And I'm Sasha Fossa.
And we're excited to be with you here today, talking about discovering one surprising thing that if you choose this year could change everything. And I want to share, because I think it has to do with what we're going to talk about, but I want to share how I came inspired to do this live with Sasha. And if you're coming on now, please say hello so we can say hi to you and know, or if you're watching the replay later on. But I was in meditation a couple days ago, or maybe a week ago. I had gone down to a reservoir right by my house. So I was on a bike ride and was sitting in meditation with the trees. And I just had this this feeling come in of like, we need to come on and talk about this. Sasha has helped me significantly with this. And so that's where it was born from, of just this place of, okay, let's get together and let's share. I think now more than ever, with everything happening in the world, this is going to be a really important conversation.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you. So our topic is, what is one thing that you can change that changes everything this year? And it's really actually more about choosing than changing, we decided. And that really is in alignment with, so I'm Sasha Fossa. My business is Sacred Temple Arts, and my focus in life and business is to choose pleasure as a way of life. And that's actually what we're here to talk about, is how choosing pleasure will change your life.
As it has. And Sasha has been instrumental in that, in this past year of, obviously lots of changes, lots of things beyond our control. I had a lot of stress with, business, with my business, with kids being now all of a sudden they're home, instead of at school, they're remote learning. And it was just like a lot of stress. And so Sasha has really helped me be able to choose pleasure and see what that looks like. And so I was like, I have to bring her on. We have to have this conversation, because I think that there are a lot of people out there that could really use this, even though it sounds counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, it does. Everything in our society is kind of designed the opposite around, it's more consumerism than actual pleasure. So we're talking about something deeper around what actually is true in your body that is very pleasurable, and that actually creates floods of good hormones and chemical balance, and is nurturing and yummy and juicy, right?
And so if you're watching and you're thinking, I don't have time for pleasure, hang in there, because that's what I thought before too. So I know Sasha's going to share some really great information and some tips and about how, even if you think you don't have time for it, even if you think, it's the last on the list, you're going to want to still stay with us here.
Stay with us. Give it a chance and a choice.
Yes.
Really prioritizing pleasure will just irrevocably change things for you. And I really, this last year, I don't know about everyone else, but, especially I feel so much for parents who are dealing with, so much more stress with their children and everything. As a person that is pretty solo these days, and just a kiddie mama, I don't have that pressure, but I have tremendous financial pressure around my business. And for me, really, I'm someone that my greatest pleasure is my freedom. I'm a real freedom-loving person, whether it's freedom of speech, freedom to take a walk without a mask on my face when I go out the door and want to be in nature. There's a lot of things that, for me, pleasures have been stripped away. Actually very much stripped away. Some of my greatest pleasures, travel, really dining out, is not what it used to be. You know, I didn't do this much anymore, but I miss going out dancing in a bar.
Yes.
And getting all sweaty and being around a lot of hot and sweaty humans and going to concerts. And, you know, I kind of outgrown it, but now I'm like, oh man, I wish I could at least, I'll be allowed to do that.
Yeah.
I wanted to. So we want to
lot of
look at, right? We want to look at pleasure as a spectrum and something that should always be evolving for you, right? So what my pleasure is now is not what my pleasure was 5 minutes ago, let alone 5 years ago, right? So the key with the pleasure is what would my body desire that would make this moment more pleasurable, right? What would my body like right now? You know, just asking your body right now, what would be more pleasurable for you in this moment? You know, if I do that, it's like, oh, the more pleasure is like really tuning in and feeling into the energy of who's connecting with us, whether you're here in live time or in the replay. You know, connecting with this beautiful being right next to me. I can feel her warmth and her caring. Someone's come in. Good. Hi, Kathleen. Right? So what in your body in this moment would feel more pleasurable? What is it that you need? And, you know, again, pleasure is not frivolous. It's actually the number one ingredient in many ways that's missing from our lives in general, and especially for more female orientated or embodied beings. Our bodies are designed for pleasure, and yet our society is not. It is not at all. So we won't go so much into that today. And feel free to type in questions or anything in the chat too, or anything you want us to address more of. I just want to share some little pieces here about some facts on pleasure, right? And these come from Colleen and I have both really enjoyed Christina Marassi, who calls herself she is a pleasure CEO and a huge advocate for women's pleasure. And so this was something from her from a while back. So pleasure gives you health, vitality, and your inner glow and turn on, right? Implementing, you know, it into your life as much as you can. And here's 5 sexy scientific facts on why pleasure is good. Scientists now believe there is a vagina-brain connection joined by 4 major nerve highways. This means your sexual organs are part of your female creativity, confidence, and sense of transcendence.
Wow.
I think we all kind of knew this in our bodies, but it's so nice to have it affirmed somewhere, right?
Yes.
Oxytocin, which is a hormone we'll talk a little bit more about, the bonding or love hormone. There's a lot of different names for it. And with pleasure produces more oxytocin. So oxytocin helps your brain create neuroplasticity. This is the ability to change your mindset, create new habits, and let go of old behaviors. So again, when you're going into 2021 and it's like you're trying to set resolutions or goals or whatever it is, maybe back up a bit and choose pleasure first. Since the pleasure is going to help your brain to actually be able to change your mindset, create new habits, and let go of old behaviors.
It's like everything is easier when you're coming from pleasure.
Right?
It's
more fun and it's easier. Right? We've been taught that's the hard work and it's the resistance and it's the pushing through everything. That doesn't really work for a lot of us with very female orientated bodies and hormones and so forth. It's just, it may work for some of you. Everyone's different. And again, we're looking at maybe that is your pleasure, right? To be really goal orientated and to really push through things. Again, it's unique to each person, but what is really true for you and what is true for your body? Dopamine, which Naomi Wolf, who is the author of many wonderful books, but one of my favorites is Vagina, a Biography, which is, I believe that was her latest. She calls dopamine the ultimate feminist chemical. So dopamine is produced in the brain when you're having pleasure, right? It inspires motivation, increases confidence and assertiveness, and opens us up to new challenges and encourages a healthy libido. All good, right?
Yes.
What is the antidote to stress? It is, and trauma, stress and trauma. The antidote is pleasure. Its biochemical cocktails melt away long-held bodily tension and create new feelings of safety and literally counteract cortisol and adrenaline. This is like huge, right?
Huge.
Huge. And being a being that both of us being beings, and we know there's many of you out there as well that have had trauma. We live in a traumatic society, but have had, childhood trauma, sexual abuse, all kinds of really, difficult things where you may have a diagnosis of PTSD or CPTSD. And I have that. And what I've found is, again, the more pleasure that I incorporate into my life and into my daily practices or routine and just experience, the more that I can be safely in my body again.
Absolutely.
Right? The more I can safely be in my body, be connected to the earth, be connected to others, enjoy my life, right?
Yes.
So it is the antidote. And pleasure is also like a muscle that you build. This muscle builds through attention. Anyone can increase their libido and build new neural pathways by making pleasure a priority. And this in turn releases biochemical pleasure cocktails, which we now know is good for health and therefore good for your life. Pleasure is good for health, the nervous system, confidence, mindset, libido, and creative innovation. Right? How's it get even better than that?
And that now more than ever, I think we, in order to evolve as a society, it is calling for more creativity, more innovation,
Yes.
more, acknowledging the structures and the systems that are no longer working, are no longer taking us to where we're growing into. And so we're not gonna like have those epiphanies or have those ideas and inspirations come through when we're just sitting there like so stressed out and like so so much anxiety, and like that is not the state of being that I found from all the things that Sasha's helped me with. That does not invite those things in. It actually closes the door to them because your body is just trying to make it through the day. There's no energy available for it to expand and grow and like imagine and dream and have all these like juicy inspiration come through.
Absolutely. Yeah. So maybe some of other people are joining us and getting kind of what we're on to here, right? Choosing pleasure, choosing it as so you want to be choosing pleasure, micro-dosing it in your daily life. And then you want to have like macro dosing too. So, that can look like for macro dosing, actually scheduling things in weekly, right? And, I really recommend you want to schedule in things that are just for your pleasure, that you're doing solo. And then you can schedule in things that are pleasurable with your kids and with your partner if you have them, whatever it is. But to not put the pleasure all on the external of being about pleasing others,
Yes.
which is so easy to do.
That's a trap. That's a
Right?
trap.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something maybe you could share just a little bit more about, with kids and making your some different choices in how it affected your home environment, right?
Yeah. So when I, throughout this whole pandemic and especially the last 4 months, I have been on an intense, a deep healing journey coming back to myself and looking at things about myself and how I want to live my life. And when I was talking to Sasha, was saying like, wow, I just have a lot of anxiety. I just feel like stressed. And she asked one question. She said, how often are you self-pleasuring? And I was like, not often. Because the kids, they're remote learning. There's a million things right on the list or in your head of what needs to happen that day. But after that conversation, it was really a huge inspiration where it was like, you know what? Self-pleasuring, and that's just one, form of pleasure, is now a non-negotiable for me. And so whether it's, where the kids are doing their online learning, I know I have a certain amount of time, 20, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and I'm going, or I'll say, I'm going to have some alone time, and it's a non-negotiable. It's a regular occurrence, and my body, I feel so much more joy. I have had such deep, meaningful conversations with my kids where before in the past, like my daughter was like about to have a meltdown about something. And before in the past, instead of getting all frustrated and like, I can't handle this right now, I was so calm and was able to really connect with her and hear her and understand what's going on for her and really help her through some things because I had put my need for pleasure at a priority and was able to be more available.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, self-pleasure is a word that we often just use to, instead of masturbation, since the word masturbation has a lot of, innately comes from to shame. So self-pleasure is actually really healthy. It's a physical need. And it's extremely healthy for for all bodies. But again, we're focusing a little more on feminine bodies here, and our bodies are designed for pleasure. Generally speaking, the amount of nerve endings that we have just in the clitoris alone, should be able to give you a jump start of it's opening up some pathways, new neural pathways and energy for pleasure just with a little stimulation there, let alone all the other places that are available of erogenous zones. And I can teach you all of that. That's part of the work that I do, but we're focusing just more on pleasure in general, but we have to add in, the physical self-pleasure piece. So, I really believe that an orgasm a day does keep the doctor away for feminine
or
bodies.
Two,
yeah,
or
2 or 3 or as many as possible. I say really live orgasmically. Our bodies are designed for orgasm, and I teach on a whole spectrum of all different types of orgasms that you can have. Soulgasms and full body orgasms, spiritual orgasms, heart orgasms, breast orgasms, everything imaginable, right? You want to have it all, right? The pleasure needs to be in a constant state of new expansion, not getting smaller. And when I saw my world getting so much smaller in the last year with stress and the trauma of what's going on in the world and all of it, I really, in those moments when I could get into a place where I felt depressed and it was challenging to get out of bed, I knew in those moments that the first thing I needed to do was to self-pleasure and to get the hormonal cocktail going again of some rising up of energy and my sexual energy awakening again in my body, getting what it needs to just get out of bed, to just make it through the day. So it can feel like the very last thing you want to do. And again, it should be the first thing that you do, because it's going to change everything for you if you're willing to choose it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for Marie, who's just joined us. Yeah.
And we'd love to hear from you. Like, what are some things that are pleasurable for you that you really enjoy, whether it's, by yourself or with other people, whatever that is? We'd love to hear if you feel inspired
type
to
it
share.
into the chat for us. Yeah. With oxytocin building, I will just give you some, some possibilities here. For oxytocin building practices, cuddling, orgasms, sexual pleasure, build oxytocin. And again, this is an essential hormone and neurotransmitter for women's well-being and sexual functioning. Oxytocin has connection to life-affirming activities as maternal behavior, lactation, selective social bonding, and sexual pleasure. So you can find lots of information on oxytocin practices, but even simply sitting with your kids or with yourself and coloring, doing certain hand motions that are repetitive build oxytocin in the brain. And the thing with the female brains too is the more oxytocin that we have, we want to be like overflowing. When we get into depletion mode, it's pretty serious. And I'm sure everyone out there can understand what that feels like. Of the difference between being in that depletion mode and literally being starved of these brain chemicals and being totally shut down sexually, compared to when you're overflowing with them and you're like, ooh, like what else can I do that's going to be more pleasurable? And I just feel pleasure everywhere, and I have so much more pleasure just in my body, just being.
And you know what I
Right?
found out too is when it's like you're rewiring your body, and it almost is like everything becomes easier.
Yes.
Like I will literally have been thinking about something. This just happened literally yesterday. I was thinking about something, and then I'm like, instead of like, I got to go take massive action, and I got to go do all this research and figure all this stuff out. Someone literally just randomly texted me something. I was like, holy shit.
I love it, right?
It's like you're a magnet. You're a magnet for all the things you
Yes.
want. It's like life becomes more fun, more enjoyable, easier. But it can seem counterintuitive with everything that's happening in the world too, is like, with all these people suffering or all this stuff that's happening, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. It seems like the exact opposite, and
Right.
often the opposite of what we actually are perceiving is true. And I think this is a perfect example of that. Pleasure is also a great way to, again, take back your freedom. For me, it's like, okay, well, I may be locked in the house, but you know what? I can explode in a lot of orgasms and have a lot of energy and do a lot of great things to change things on the planet, in my body, and in my connection with the earth. Now, that may seem very esoteric and kind of out there for you, but again, what is your pleasure? I'm just sharing some of like my thing, and Colleen's sharing some of hers. What is for you pleasurable, right? And what's going to boost those brain chemical cocktails and everything in ways that work for you? So yeah, again, share with us if you would like in the chat, whether you're on the replay or not too. We'll be looking back at this.
And I think just one
Yes,
other
please.
thing too is, it wasn't that long ago when you were saying, I had a window of time where it was, I think, the kids were over a friend's house and Luke was doing something, and I had maybe a couple hours, and you were like, what if you just asked your body, what does it want to experience today? And I just instead of, again, going to all the things I think I'm supposed to do, I just let my body guide me from one thing to the next. It was like, one was like listening to a podcast, that it was like a bike ride, and like all these things. And it was just my mood and my attitude. It was a really powerful experiment on how following pleasure and how following your body can really make a huge difference and how you show up for yourself and others.
Yes. And in such dramatic and drastic times, something that really I experienced as well recently, especially over like the holidays, is that I was judging myself because my pleasure was like really low. And what I discovered, though, was that I was judging myself because my pleasure that I was choosing looked different than what I was used to. And what my body actually wanted was incredible amounts of sleep. And I was judging the shit out of myself for how much sleep I was doing, but yet I was deeply in a place of regrouping and healing on a very intense level, physically, energetically, spiritually. And it's the dead of winter here in where we live, and it's actually not such a bad thing to realize that your body's going to want different things than it will in the summertime, or different cycles and seasons and so forth. So yeah, just, it could be just, I want to sleep a lot, right? I want to watch a lot of silly movies or whatever it is. It can be anything that just is, again, it's about what it brings you pleasure and to play with that and expand in different ways on it. And the easiest way is, because I have a lot of clients that I'm like, so what brings you pleasure? And they're like, they have no idea. I have to give them home play, which is like what I gave Colleen. I was like, go and do things that are fun and ask your body and just follow that along, right? And it helps to have somebody actually give you home play, right? You're like forced to do it. So if you want to come for session work, I'll give you pleasure home play of many different types as part of all my sessions. So the that like, really having to like schedule it for yourself, having to make a list of an ongoing pleasure list, writing it all down of the things that really bring you pleasure. Something that I was reminded of that's very simple that can also build oxytocin and immediately start to change some brain chemistry. And I'm sure you've heard this, but expressions of gratitude. Right? Just reminding yourself of what you're grateful for. I woke up the other day and I was in kind of a shitty mood about things. And I noticed that my beautiful cat was laying across from the bed on the window seat and her head was on my gratitude journal. And I literally felt like, I was like, that is the weirdest position that cat is in. That looks so uncomfortable. And then I was like, oh, she's telling me to use my gratitude practice and journal. She's like, literally, her head's like
like a big arrow.
Right? Show some gratitude, Mom. You're in a really bad mood. So it can be a fun practice to do, whether it's with your kids, just like, hey, what are you grateful for in your life? What brings you pleasure? Asking them what brings them pleasure. And same with if you have a partner or partners, right? Appreciating them and asking them more about what it is that they feel grateful for, how you're grateful for them, and it feeds on itself, right?
Absolutely.
Hi, Kim.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Yes.
Have we had any questions in the chat yet?
I know, I haven't seen any. If you have any questions, again, if you're just joining us, we're talking about choosing pleasure for this year, which again may seem very counterintuitive, but it has been really a game changer for me and my life in really relieving stress and coming into a place of really feeling, safe in my body with all the stuff that's happening in the world and being able to connect to myself and others in a deeper way.
Yeah. Another way you can kind of look at it, one of my other great teachers is Alison Armstrong. And, she talked a lot about if you can imagine how you feel when you're in like a cave woman state, right? And it's just like, you don't feel pleasure. It's just like you're going through the motions of things, and you're in this very deprived kind of state, right? At this cave woman, like, you're much more likely to lash out at people, right? To just not. So it's the difference between, are you in your cave woman, or are you in your queen state, right? Queen or human spirit, right? As opposed to like the cave person. Human spirit, goddess, queen, any of those, like, if whatever resonates for you or doesn't, right? But the state of feeling, so pleasure is light. Another way to perceive it is asking your body, noticing in your body what's lighter, heavier. Even if you're whatever you're going to eat, right? Does this feel lighter to eat this or heavier in your body? And you learn that as a tool I teach from Access Consciousness. You learn that in my working with me. What's lighter or heavier? Because pleasure is going to always be lighter, right?
And I've used that to make some decisions too,
Yeah.
not even just with food, but like in other areas, like, do I want to do this or that? And you're like, well, does that feel heavy in your body or light? And I'm like, oh, no, heavy. Like, okay, well, there you go. Our bodies are always talking to us, right? If we listen.
That's it. And if you have to do some task that feels heavier in your body, well, then the question would be, what can I add that would make this more pleasurable? What would make this experience lighter, right? What else is possible to add some lightness into things?
And that's where I'll turn on an awesome like music station while I'm doing the dishes, because it's like I hate the dishes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? All of those new ways, again, of just like pleasure. But, hedonism has like such a bad connotation in so many ways. I am a hedonist. I am like totally living a life now of like, I choose, my own level of different levels of hedonism, because I lived so much suffering in this lifetime. It was just like, why was I always having so much trauma, drama, and suffering? And then it's like everything changed, and it's just like, nope, I'm going to choose pleasure. I'm going to choose how to feel better. I'm going to heal myself through pleasure. I've been doing self-development work for 25 years. And, it just seems like when you're choosing the pleasure of it and you're doing it for fun and you're making different choices around, what's lighter and heavier, things just get easier, and the body unlocks the trauma on its own and naturally. And, you just start to have some very different experiences with more ease and joy in your life. And it's embodied. It's like you actually are really feeling it like in your body, not just like out here somewhere, or, or feeling it through pleasing others is great. But where is, again, your pleasure, right?
Yes.
That needs really what needs to feed you.
Absolutely.
We'll just make I have a couple notes here because I'm like that. I just want to say that, also with the social isolation and what's happening on the planet too, that can be really devastating, again, for many of us. But it's like, especially Allison would say that women are the Velcro of the universe. We're all about connection, right? And so it's in this time where if you cannot connect with others physically like you'd like to, right? Your primary relationship is with your body. How much more can you connect in your own body and source your own pleasure, right? There's a lot of teachers out there, Mama Gina, so forth, say a greatest untapped resource on the planet, essentially women's sexual pleasure, our pleasure in our bodies, embodied pleasure, right?
Yeah.
So go into that. What if 2021 was about choosing pleasure and really sourcing, right? Really sourcing deeply into your body of how you can expand that. And again, if you need some help, I didn't say officially who I was really at the beginning, so I will just...
We were so excited to
jump in. Yeah. So I'm Sasha Fossa. I have a business called Sacred Temple Arts, and I offer custom coaching programs to individuals and to couples and partners of different types. And I work virtually and in person. In person can be a little more challenging these days, but I am in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and I do offer some in-person sessions. What's different about my work is that I'm a trinity of things. I'm a sex coach, a sex relationship intimacy coach and educator. And I am also a healing arts practitioner. And I also teach Tantra. So there's a lot of different parts of me. My credentials are, I have and I left out the wellness piece. I'm a wellness coach and practitioner. But I do tend to focus more on intimacy and relationships as your wellness path and your sexual energy and awakening that. So through pleasure, right? Again, my business motto, choose pleasure as a way of life. And my credentials, I have a master's in health arts and sciences. I'm advanced certified tantric educator. I'm sex educator through Planned Parenthood. And my latest and greatest fun experience was to get licensed as an erotic blueprint coach, which is a whole modality of fun, pleasurable things to do that was through the well-known sexologist Jaya. And the blueprints are pathways to pleasure, just basically, and all about how you can have more pleasure and source it from your body and have better relationships. So Those are essentially what I do, and you can find me at sacredtemplearts.com. I offer a complimentary consultation about my services that you can sign up for there, or you can PM me through Facebook or my business page on Facebook, Sacred Temple Arts, or find me again my website. What else?
And what I would add too is that what I think is really powerful about one of the many things that is powerful about the work you do is that you can piecemeal, you can customize packages or programs for whatever someone is presenting with, whatever it is that you want to focus on in the healing and pleasure and whatever that looks like, relationships, is that you can pull from all these places of all these expertise and make a customized plan and program for that person to meet their needs. So I cannot recommend Sasha enough. Like I said, I really wanted to, felt inspired to share this because it has really made such a tremendous difference in my life and in my healing path to come from this place of really exploring pleasure, making it a priority, and healing from a place of choosing pleasure is radically different than the suffering, like you were saying, healing from trauma in a place of pain and suffering all the time. So, yeah. So if you're feeling a call, please reach out to Sasha. I can't recommend her enough.
Thank you.
So, any last things, or are we feeling?
I think we're feeling pretty complete.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing about what you just said is it's we're not spiritually bypassing or using other tactics to not feel or to experience what needs to come out of the body of the trauma and drama, and really what we've held inside, right? That is blocking our pleasure. That all needs to come out and to be felt, and that's what I'm a guide for and part of the work I do. What I'm saying is that when this is coming out and you're starting to get more unblocked, you want to be putting more pleasure in and tapping into your pleasure as a way to rebalance the nervous system and to recalibrate, right? So that you're not constantly stuck in the pain, trauma, drama, depression, all of the things you may be experiencing. So again, it can seem like, how is that possible when I'm feeling all of this? Again, maybe sign up and have a call with me because I understand where you're coming from, and I've been there, and I'd like to help you. So, yeah. So make 2021 one in which you choose more pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here. And again, if there's any questions or anything, please just put it in the comment section and we'll definitely come back and address anything that, So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye for